Welcome to Ex Confessions Unlocked, where exes lie, cheat, betray, and we expose every bit of it. Real stories, raw emotions, and the truth they never wanted you to hear. Subscribe and unlock the drama. My ex-wife told my stepson not to invite me to his graduation party, which I paid for. She said, "Invite your real dad instead." So I canceled the whole thing. I'll never forget the moment I found out I wasn't invited to the graduation party I paid for. Not because I was busy, not because I was traveling, but because my ex-wife, Annette, told my stepson to invite his real dad instead. I was holding a receipt for the venue deposit in one hand and my phone in the other, rereading the text over and over again like it would somehow change. "Hey, Jonah, just a heads up, Mom said it might be weird if you came to the party since my biological dad is flying in. She thinks it's better to keep things simple." Simple. That's the word she used. Like I hadn't been in that boy's life since he was 6 years old. Like I hadn't paid for the damn venue, the catering, the tux rental, the school fees, and every driving lesson that got him to the graduation stage in the first place. Let me rewind. My name's Jonah. I'm 42 now, but this all started when I was in my early 30s, newly divorced from my first wife, trying to rebuild my life after a rough breakup and a worse business failure. That was when I met Annette. She was this firecracker of a woman, witty, sharp, beautiful in a very commanding kind of way. She walked into a mutual friend's barbecue with her then 7-year-old son, Brian, and within minutes, she'd taken over the conversation, the grill, and somehow my attention. At first, I thought she was out of my league. She had a steady job in HR, a stylish apartment, and this confidence that made everyone else seem two-dimensional. I was still licking my wounds, nursing a fledgling consulting job, and renting a guest house behind a retired couple's home. But Annette liked ambition. She liked that I was trying to build something. She said she saw potential. When we got married 3 years later, Brian called me Jonah for a while. Then Uncle Jonah. Then, eventually just Dad. I never forced it. I never asked for it. But I earned it. Every school project, every hospital run, every time his biological father ghosted him on a birthday, I was there. That kid mattered to me. Annette and I were good. Until we weren't. I don't know when exactly the change started. Maybe after I started making real money and spending longer hours at work. Maybe when I began getting invited to panels, then media interviews, then speaking engagements. Suddenly, she wasn't as impressed by ambition anymore. She wanted attention, presence, energy, all things I thought I was earning for us, but apparently I was spending elsewhere. Fights became routine. She'd accuse me of prioritizing my business over family, of flexing for strangers instead of being available for her. I'd defend myself with bank statements, pointing out how much of Brian's life I funded, private school, soccer camps, braces. I told her I was building a life that would make things easier for all of us. She told me I was chasing validation like a dog after a moving car. We divorced when Brian was 16. It was civil at first. No property war. No screaming in courtrooms. Just two tired adults who had stopped recognizing each other. But when it came to Brian, things got murky. He wasn't my biological son, and Annette knew exactly how to use that fact when it benefited her. She said things like, he needs to reconnect with his roots, and I think it's time his real father stepped up. Never mind that his real father had barely sent a card in 10 years. Never mind that when Brian needed help applying to college, he called me, not his roots. Still, I paid for the college prep courses. I drove him to campus tours. I sat with him through his rejection letters and celebrated his acceptance into a solid business school like it was my own win. I didn't need a title. I didn't need credit. Or so I thought. Brian was set to graduate last month. He made it through despite COVID interruptions, a rough sophomore slump, and a rocky relationship with a girlfriend who nearly derailed his senior thesis. Through it all, I was there, quietly, consistently, not looking for fanfare. Annette reached out about the party 3 months before the graduation date. Said she wanted to make it special. She found a venue, a nice garden spot in Karen, and asked if I could help with the deposit and logistics. I paid for everything up front, catering, decorations, even a sound system for speeches. I was happy to. This was Brian. I didn't even flinch. We were supposed to coordinate the final guest list together, but she kept postponing those meetings. Said she was busy, or that Brian was still finalizing things. I trusted her. Honestly, I just wanted the party to go well. It felt like a symbolic celebration of more than just a degree. It felt like the closing of a chapter that I had helped write. Then I got the text. Not even a call. Just a message. From Brian. "Hey Jonah, just a heads up. That's all it took to unravel years of quiet commitment." At first, I didn't reply. I just sat there with the phone in my hand and a burning, shameful pressure behind my eyes. Like I'd been caught being naive. Like I'd been scammed by love itself. I forwarded the message to Annette. No message, just a screenshot. She didn't respond for a day. Then she finally wrote, "It's just one party, Jonah. Don't be dramatic. We didn't want to make things awkward for his biological dad. He's flying in all the way from the UK. It's a big deal for Brian." I could have screamed. I could have begged. I could have gone on a long rant about who had really been there for Brian. But I didn't. I called the venue. I gave them the payment details, confirmed the name, and then calmly asked them to cancel the booking. The woman on the other end hesitated, asked if I was sure. I said yes. I didn't need the deposit back. They could keep it. I just didn't want them using what I paid for. Then I blocked Annette. Brian called 2 days later, confused. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail. Then another. Then a text. "Hey, did you cancel the venue?" Mom said they called her. "What's going on?" I sat with that message for a while. Then I replied. I was under the impression I wasn't welcome. Enjoy the party with your real dad. Cold. Maybe. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't yelling. I was just done performing loyalty in a role they were happy to rewrite without me. The party didn't happen. I know because mutual friends told me Annette had to scramble to book a smaller, cheaper alternative last minute, and a few guests bailed when they found out the original venue was gone. The biological dad apparently didn't even show up. He had flight issues. Meanwhile, I was in Naivasha that weekend. Alone, peaceful, sipping a drink on a hotel patio with no speeches, no forced smiles, and no invisible seat at the table. But the story doesn't end there. Not by a long shot. Because a month after that silent collapse of what should have been a joyful milestone, I got a message I didn't expect. From Brian. It started with, "I didn't know everything, and I think I messed up." And that's where things really got complicated. I didn't answer Brian's message right away. I read it, though, read it several times. His exact words were, "I didn't know everything, and I think I messed up. Can we talk?" There was a time that message would have sent me rushing to call him back, to fix everything, to protect him, even from his own mother's manipulations. But this time, I needed to sit with it. I needed to let him sit with it, too. Because the truth is, I had always been the fixer. When his biological dad forgot his 8th birthday, I planned a weekend trip for the two of us. When he broke his wrist and Annette was too busy at work to leave early, I left a boardroom mid-presentation and carried him into the ER myself. When his first girlfriend dumped him in high school, I didn't just give him advice. I sat with him in the driveway until midnight, just so he wouldn't feel alone. But somewhere along the line, I realized I had taught everyone around me that I would always be there. That no matter how I was treated, no matter how many times I was sidelined, I'd still show up like clockwork. So this time, I didn't. 2 days after his message, Brian showed up at my office. I saw him through the glass door, tall, now lean, wearing that nervous smile he'd always had when he knew he'd done something wrong but didn't know how to make it right. I could have told the receptionist to send him away. I didn't. He walked in slow, stood just inside the threshold. "Hey," he said, like it was a normal visit. I leaned back in my chair and studied him. "Hey." He shifted awkwardly. "Do you have a minute?" I nodded toward the chair opposite me. There was silence for a bit, the kind that used to never exist between us. "I didn't know you paid for the party," he finally said. "Mom told me she handled it all." "Of course she did. She said you were too busy to be involved, that you'd probably cancel last minute anyway." I didn't flinch, but something cracked a little deeper in me. Not because I believed it, because he had. "You believe that?" I asked. He sighed. "I didn't want to, but I guess I didn't question it. I was stressed. Final projects, graduation pressure, stuff with Emily. Your ex?" I asked. He nodded. I waited. She said it'd mean a lot if my biological dad was there, that it might give us a chance to reconnect. She said you'd understand. "Did you?" He looked up. "What? Did you believe I'd understand?" He paused. I hoped you wouldn't take it personally." I gave a small laugh. Not bitter, just tired. "Brian, I raised you for over a decade. I paid for school, your braces, your trips. I taught you how to shave. I stood in for your dad at every Father's Day event. And you thought I wouldn't take being uninvited to your graduation party personally?" His eyes dropped. "I don't want an apology," I added. "I just want you to know, when you let someone else rewrite our history like that, it didn't just hurt. It erased me." He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." There was a pause again, longer this time. "I canceled the venue because I couldn't stomach paying for a celebration I wasn't welcome at," I said. "I wasn't trying to punish you. I just didn't want to play the part anymore." Brian nodded. "I get it. I don't think you do. Not yet. But you will." He looked up again. "Is there any way we can fix this?" That question hit harder than I expected, because it wasn't manipulative. It was honest, vulnerable, but still too late. You're an adult now, I said gently. You get to choose who your father is, but I get to choose where I place my energy. And I'm not angry anymore, Brian. Just free. He looked like he wanted to cry, or maybe punch something, but he nodded, slowly, like he was digesting something heavy for the first time. We didn't hug. There was no dramatic reconciliation. He just stood, shook my hand, awkwardly stiff, and walked out. I sat there for a long time after, staring at the door. Annette didn't call me. Not after the party fell apart. Not after Brian showed up. But I got a LinkedIn notification 2 weeks later. She'd viewed my profile. Twice. I laughed. It wasn't petty laughter. Just one of those moments where you realize how quiet karma is. It doesn't scream. It doesn't come with flashing lights or revenge fantasies. Sometimes it just shows up as silence. Absence. A gap they can't cross anymore. Then, the unexpected twist. A few months later, I got invited to a startup leadership summit in South Africa. Big deal. Private panel. Networking with top execs. It was something I've been working toward for years. At the closing dinner, one of the guest speakers approached me, a tech consultant from Nairobi I vaguely recognized. He smiled, extended his hand, and said, "You're Jonah, right? Annette's ex." I froze for half a second. "Yeah," I said cautiously. He laughed. "Don't worry, I'm not here to gossip. We actually went on a few dates last year. She talked about you a lot." "Did she?" He nodded. "She said she didn't realize what she had until it was gone. Said you built your life from scratch, stayed humble, stayed loyal. Said she thought you were doing it all to impress people, but now she thinks you were just trying to build something for people." I stared at him. He shrugged. "She said she didn't know how to apologize, so she just never did." That conversation stayed with me, not because I needed the praise, but because it reminded me that sometimes the apology does come, just not in the form we expect. A few days later, I got an email from Annette. Subject line, "I owe you more than silence." I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. In it, she wrote that she realized, too late, that she had made Brian a pawn in a story that had more to do with her pride than his happiness. That she didn't mean to alienate me, but that deep down, she always feared that I'd outgrow her. And when I did, she resented me for it. She wrote, "You were never trying to be flashy. You were just trying to prove that love can build something real. I'm sorry I didn't see that." She didn't ask for anything. Not forgiveness. Not a call back. Not a friendship. Just left it there. And that, honestly, was the best thing she could have done. Because I didn't want her back. I didn't want validation. What I wanted, and finally got, was clarity. I replied simply, "Thank you for the message. I wish you well." That was it. No more messages after that. Brian and I, we've started talking again. Slowly. We met for coffee a few weeks back. It wasn't like before. There's distance now, but also maturity. He told me he's working at a startup, figuring out who he is outside of his parents' shadows. I told him I'm proud of him. Because I am. But I also told him proud doesn't mean attached. I'm building a new chapter now. Not out of spite. Not to prove anyone wrong. Just because I finally know my worth doesn't live in someone else's acceptance. And that feels better than any party I could have ever paid for. 6 months after the canceled graduation party, I got a text from Brian that simply said, "Are you free this weekend? I'd love to take you to lunch." My treat. I smiled at the phrasing. My treat. The boy who used to ask me for pocket money to buy PlayStation credits was now offering to take me out. It felt like a quiet, grown-up peace offering. Not grand. Not dramatic. Just real. We met at a small place in Westlands. Nothing fancy. Wooden tables, soft jazz, open windows. We sat outside in the corner, away from the noise. He had grown. Not in height, but in posture. There was less slouch. More awareness in his shoulders. A different kind of weight he carried now. When I recognized, "I got promoted," he said, almost immediately. "That was fast," I replied, raising an eyebrow. I stayed late. Took the work no one else wanted. Solved a billing nightmare in the system without being asked. He grinned. "Sound like anyone you know?" I chuckled. "Maybe a little." We talked for 2 hours. Not about the past. At least, not directly. But about life now. About how he'd finally ended things with Emily for good and started therapy on his own. He admitted he'd been wrestling with resentment toward both his parents for years and didn't know where to place it. So he'd just defaulted to silence. "I thought silence made me neutral," he said. "But it made me complicit." That hit me harder than I expected. He stirred his drink, eyes low. "You were always steady, Jonah." And I confused that with safe. Like I didn't have to worry about losing you. So I didn't guard you the way I should have. I nodded slowly. "I appreciate that." There was a pause, the kind that used to feel awkward between us, but now just felt honest. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a framed photo. It was from his high school graduation. The three of us, him, Annette, and me, standing outside the school hall all beaming. I remember that moment clearly. Annette had just told him, "This man deserves more credit than you'll ever understand." Brian slid the photo across the table. "I want you to have this." I hesitated. "Why now?" "Because I think I'm finally ready to be proud of all parts of my story. And that means including you." There it was. Not a confession. Not a plea. Inclusion. Acceptance on his terms. Not out of guilt, not out of pressure, but out of growth. I took the photo, ran my thumb over the glass. I didn't say much. Just nodded. We hugged in the parking lot. Not long. Just enough. I watched him walk to his car and felt something lift. Like a thread had been loosened in my chest. Later that night, I sat in my apartment, photo propped on my shelf. It was strange to look at that version of me. Thinner, a little more tired, but so full of hope. I used to think being there for people was enough. That love would eventually earn me a seat at any table. But the truth is, some tables aren't built for you. And that's okay. The most powerful thing I ever did wasn't walking away. It was not walking back when I was finally missed. Annette never reached out again after that email. Not directly, but a few mutual friends told me she'd started attending some women's accountability circles and had even shared a bit of her story. That she'd admitted to using people's loyalty as a placeholder for her own insecurity. Apparently, she told someone, "I didn't lose Jonah because he stopped loving me. I lost him because I never figured out how to return it." That line stayed with me. Not because it hurt, but because it made me realize how many people we love from the surface of our wounds. We don't know how to give without conditions, so we test, control, manipulate, all out of fear. I'd lived long enough in someone else's fear. Now, I was living in my own peace. I didn't become wildly rich or famous. I didn't need to. My consulting firm grew steadily. I got a few key clients, mentored some younger guys in my industry, even launched a podcast that took off more than I expected. But the real win? I started sleeping better, laughing more, spending weekends without a pit in my stomach, wondering if I was going to be included or forgotten. I dated quietly, nothing serious yet, but I didn't feel the pressure to prove I was over Annette. Because I was. Not in the loud, triumphant way social media loves, but in the way where your body doesn't flinch when their name pops up anymore. Brian and I kept in touch, not as father and son, necessarily, but as two men who chose to be better than the silence between them. We meet up every month or so, sometimes for lunch, sometimes for a game. He never called me Dad again, but he didn't have to. Respect has its own language. One evening, almost a year after the whole party fallout, I got a text from him. "Would you mind reviewing my business proposal before I send it to investors?" I smiled, opened the document, and read every word. Because even if I wasn't the man listed on his birth certificate, I was the one he still trusted to read his dreams. And that was more than enough. Don't forget to subscribe for more confessions, more chaos, and more truth. Only on Ex-Confessions Unlocked.